I have been an avid user of Opencode for quite a long time now, even before it became so popular. It's not the only coding agent that I use nowadays. I also use AMP or AmpCode, but I love Opencode because of its LSP integration and flexibility to change models as you go, or ability to customize it with different plugins and themes. It is very extensible. You can write plugins in TypeScript to customize it for your experience. You can build themes and tools around Opencode. Check out projects like Awesome Opencode with curated list of plugins, as well as Opencode Cafe. Opencode is an open source project and the community is quite vibrant. There are many helpful plugins out there. I also learned recently that there is a SDK for Go, not to confuse with Opencode Go, because Opencode has some models that they call Opencode Go, but I mean Go as a language. And there are SDKs for other languages as well that let you interact with Opencode server. I am the type of a developer that hates typos in code base or useless debug print statements, and also I am the one who makes those typos. Your formatters and linters cannot always spot such errors, and code reviewers are not trustworthy nowadays as no one reads the code. There are tools, obviously, such as CodeRabbit and GitHub Copilot and Graphy that can check those errors when you push a pull request. But what if I want to run those checks locally using the coding agent that I have that is aware of our codebase? So the idea came to mind to run some of those checks as a pre-commit hook when we are committing our code using the coding agent that we have. And since I'm using Opencode, let's try building something with that. Opencode is not simply a TUI wrapper that lets you switch the models. It actually comes with the server, and this TUI only interacts with it. That makes it possible to run your Opencode server somewhere else and maybe connect to it from various web applications or maybe also from your phone. You can run the server only without the TUI by running Opencode serve and then specifying the port. You can also specify the password, so it's a little bit protected. As you can see, there is no UI running, just the port. The Opencode server has the REST interface, meaning that we can call the routes directly, or we could use some SDK. In our case, there is Opencode SDK Go that was generated using the stainless, and that's what we'll be using. So we can open the Go reference. This Go SDK has a lot of functions. We'll be looking for something to create a new session. So I already see there is a client.session. Probably there is a method, something like .new or .create. You'll need to create a prompt or send a prompt and get response back. And then at the end, we should be able to delete the session. And let me quickly visualize the simple architecture of our pre-commit hook. So in the beginning, we'll get the git diff, and we need to get the staged changes. So that will be -- cached. After that, we'll create a session, right? We can give it some name. After the session, we'll send some specific prompt, and I'll go into the details later, something like review the changes, etc. We should tell the Opencode agent to return the kind of review in specific format. So we'll be expecting some JSON, and then we'll be exiting, right? So we'll parse this response, and we'll exit with 0 or 1, right? So that would be the flow. So let me init some project and then go get our package. And then we can open it. Honestly, we'll just probably need a single main.go file for now. We can split it into multiple files. For the demos, I usually just stick to the best solution possible. As I mentioned, first we need to get the git diff. So we'll be using the stage diff, and we'll be using the minimum algorithm. For that, we could use the os/exec package from the Go standard library and just pass git diff --cache and --diff algorithm minimal. We could obviously use some git package, but just to run one diff, that should be enough. We get the output. I also created the helper function to just exit with the error code 1 in case something in our program fails. Also important to mention that if our diff is empty, if there are no staged changes, we simply exit, and the exit code is 0, meaning that we can just continue with our commit. Commit probably will say that there are no stage changes. Having the diff, we can build the prompt for our coding agent. We could obviously get this prompt from the user, maybe from some local file or from environment variable. Let's consider this as a default prompt. So we are asking our coding agent to review the code, look for typos, unnecessary debug statements, bugs, security issues, and so forth. LLMs, however, can answer in very unstructured format. They're unpredictable and not deterministic. We'll do our best asking our agent to return the answer in a specific format. So we want it to be a JSON, no markdown fences, no extra text, just pure JSON. And we want it to be in this format. So status, one of those. And then issues would be the array of issues it found. So with the file, line, and severity and the message. And example, if everything goes well, status is pass and issues is an empty array. After that, we add our git diff for a reference, right? So that's the prompt that you could also send to your agent manually to verify if it returns properly. We'll just praise that everything works well with the Opencode and the agent I'm using. Let's also translate this JSON format into Go structs. That would be a review struct with the list of issues, and issue is here. After that, we can start making a sequence of requests to our Opencode server, assuming it's running somewhere using the Go SDK. So let's define a base URL. So that's the default. Obviously, you can, again, configure using environment variables. For this demo, we'll be using everything hard-coded. So 4096, I believe, is the default port. And we have a prompt, and somewhere here, we need to send the requests. The following code will create an Opencode client using the base URL that we defined previously, configuring the max retries. One, in this case, I don't want it to retry multiple times. I would prefer rather that it fails quickly. We also specify the timeout for all operations, which I also don't want to extend. We know that these LLMs could be laggy, so 1 minute should be enough for us. And then we create a session. So sessions in Opencode, they have various information. What we only need is probably a title. So in the list of sessions, maybe we can see it and delete or kind of continue. Very simple pre-commit review. If something fails, we fail as well. And using the defer statement in Go, we delete the session at the end, right? So either something fails, we delete this session, or if all successful, so that's how defer is used here. All right, now we can send a prompt to this session and get the results. And these two blocks are doing exactly that. So there is a client.session.prompt where we specify the session ID and pass our parameters. So the prompt is here. Again, if something goes wrong, we will send an error, and then we get the raw response, right? And remember, we are hoping that it will be JSON. We are not sure yet, but we are putting it here. The response in Opencode prompt contains of different parts, so we need to just combine it together. After that, we'll need to kind of try to unmarshal it to our JSON structures and parse it a little bit and then exit with code 1 or 0. So let's do that. And so here we create the instance of our review struct. We try to unmarshal our response into that struct. It could fail, right? We're hoping that it's not. Then we start putting some debug information like our review status, any lines that I'm missing, because as a user, I want to see what are the issues. And if there are no issues, we just print in that. If the status is failed, here we could configure, could be fail, could be warning. We could let the user to define the severity at which to fail. And in this case, we exit with 1. If everything goes well, the Go runtime will exit the program with code 0, and we should be able to continue with our commit and then push eventually. Obviously, as you can see, all this implementation is very straightforward. It's all in a single main function, and we do one by one. It's not configurable much. I actually made it as a project, and it's on the GitHub. It's under my account Opencode pre-commit. That's more configurable. You could put kind of files, configuration, what prompt to use, your base URL of your Opencode server, and here you can see the example. But for this demo, let's just go with our single main.go version and test it. Okay, now how do we install our pre-commit hook? You probably use the projects like pre-commit that lets you kind of configure it probably as a YAML. I haven't used it in a while, and kind of different commands. There is a Husky that's more popular in JavaScript ecosystem. You don't have to do anything of that. The pre-commit hook is a single executable file, so we can just edit that. So first, let's build our project as an executable. We can do go build. Let me just confirm it's here, right? So the executable is OC in the OC folder. Now we can do, so it's under the git .git/hook/precommit. That's what we need to edit. Now, first we put our shebang, and then we do, I believe it should be able to resolve these paths. I'm not sure what's the relative paths, but let's try with that. Now I believe we also need make it executable, so chmod +x on this file. All right, so we have our server running, we have the pre-commit hook. Now we need to kind of emulate some issues, right? So let's do something like do not commit this, right? Maybe something else like println debug. And also let's make some typos. And by the way, I'm doing in the same file because it will be staged as well. Where can we do some typos? Something like that, right? Also, we state, let's stage everything. So it's like git add, I believe, -a. I'm using this alias, doesn't matter. Our pre-commit hook is executed on commit, so we can do git commit. Hello, people. Nice. It actually took some time, but you can see very nice results. So it printed this message, which happened somewhere here, right? Then the status was failed because it found actually the bug statement. It found the typo, comments, unnecessary stuff, and duplicate directory. Interesting. That's actually, I did a backup here, so it also found that quite helpful. And you see, it didn't let me commit because the exit code was 0. It's interesting that the Opencode server doesn't print anything like log statements. I believe you can enable that, but that doesn't matter. We got our answer. For this session, I used Opus 4.5 or 4.6 as my mainly driver. I'm sure these will work with pretty much any model because it's kind of very easy prompt, right? Obviously, take it with some grain of salt. LLM output is not deterministic. Every time you can get a different answer. It may not be of the format that we want. You may hit anthropic limits and so forth. So obviously still use your formatters and linters in the language of your choice. But something like that could be used for some custom checks that are not related to the syntax or the code itself. That's it. Let me know in the comments what coding agents are you using, or are you still crafting the code by hand? Thanks for watching. Bye.